Green, and I'm the librarian. And I organized this event with a lot of assistance. So, and if you like tabletop gaming, just to plug my own event a little bit, once a month, it's always the third Saturday of each month. It's always starts at 2 o'clock. I have an end time of 4 o'clock, but those who regularly come to the event know that it frequently runs to 10 or 11 or maybe even midnight. So if you are a local resident and you like to tabletop game, then come out the third Saturday of every month and play games in the library. Oh, and we also do a prize. I don't know if I said that. We always have a drawing for a board game we give away at every event. So, before we get started, I just want to say a few thank yous. This would not have been possible, like I said, without all of our volunteers. Mr. James Gibson back there doing some over there who put together this all of my library staff. This is a fabulous place to work. It's almost criminal that I get paid to work here. It really is.
Watch out saying that too loud. Batman right there.
And so we have a fabulous panel here that we brought in. And I also just saw the person who really made this all possible is my boss, our library director, Jill Donegan, who our local game stores are fabulous. We are a population around 130,000, and we have 5 phenomenal game stores in this town, and 3 of them came out here today to be with us. All right, so I meant to set them all in order of my notes, and I didn't do that, so I'm going to try and just do this off the top of my head, so if I get anything wrong, please correct me. So I have Rick Perez right here. He has a YouTube channel called Let's Level Up, and you can watch all sorts of reviews. He also has some games that he is designing. One's been accepted for publication, and he has it here to demo, and it's a pretty fantastic game. So, and all the way from Miami, we have Sam Healey and Zee Garcia.
I subscribe to that channel.
And
Terrifying right now. I'm so scared right now.
reviews. Well, you guys do.
Destroy early careers. A lot of editing. As some of these guys I'm sure will tell you. Yeah, game reviews, top 10 lists, basically just general gaming coverage, really. Trying to bring the hobby to everybody.
And they have some phenomenal coverage. You want to learn about games, how to play games, what games are great, what games are not great, what games they'll tell you. And they also do a lot of different reviewers. So they will have, one of their reviewers may love a game, one of them may not like a game. So you can watch multiple reviews on their channel of the same game. So that's pretty cool. We also have Mr. Scott Morris of Arcane Wonders. And he has a brand new game called Fireside Shiny Dice.
You're getting Justin mixed in.
Yeah!
So his game was a huge hit at Gen Con, this past Gen Con, and so definitely check it out. I had him autograph my copy. I'm going to leave my copy with him so he can do some demos of it. But it's a fabulous game. He also has Sheriff of Nottingham and Mage Wars over there. So
I love those things. I play a lot of all day, every day.
And next we have Justin and Anne Marie DeWitt of Fireside Games. And Miss Anne Marie DeWitt just designed a new game called The Village Crone, which is also a big hit at Gen Con. They have a demo copy here. I was very sad that I did not buy it at Gen Con. Very sad, because I thought, oh, they'll be here, I can get a copy. No, it's sold out, so it's an awesome game. So check it out and pre-order it. It's going to be a big hit. And last but not least, Mr. J.R. Honeycutt with Level 99 Games.
I wasn't going to say it, but
And I will tell you what impresses me the most about JR. I don't. He has built, I think with some help, but certainly he's been a moving force behind it in the Dallas-Fort Worth area. They are called the DFW Nerd Night. And it is a fabulous gaming community, and they have the coolest tagline of any community gaming.
Yeah, we play games and help people.
Play games and help people. They raise a lot of money for charities at Gen Con every year, all sorts of cons, just in their community. So he does some really amazing things to build community in the DFW area. So what I've done is I've put together a list of questions, and rather than have each panelist answer all 15 questions, we might be here all night. And I know you guys really want to play games, right? So I'm going to let them pick and choose, and each one's going to take 2 questions off the list. Or I told them y'all won't know if they make up their own. So anyway, so we're going to start right here with Mr. Rick Perez and work our way down. And JR threw you under the bus. I am so sorry.
I love you, Ricky.
So I want to answer a question and something to kind of ponder over. What are the key elements of a successful game? And for me, it's just one answer. It's very broad, and that's is the game fun, right? Are you going to pick up a game and are you going to enjoy playing it? Regardless of the mechanics, you can get into a bunch of different mechanics, a bunch of different themes. At the end of the day, if the game isn't fun, if people aren't enjoying it, nobody's really going to want to have it hit the table. So that's what I do. What do you guys think of that one?
yeah, let me jump in. I wanted to clarify something. When I read the question, something popped up in my head, and it was the difference between a successful game and a good game. A good game is different for me than for every single other person up here and every one of you probably. A successful game is successful to everybody because it's sold well, because it's generally well received, whatever. And that game is successful because it knows its target audience. Because it knows, and it was designed from a point of view to know who it's for. That doesn't mean it's for me necessarily, or for any of us, but the game knows who it's attempting to sell itself to. That's why Munchkin is so popular, that's why Flutz is extremely popular, because those games know who they are targeting. So that, I think, makes a successful game, a game that is clear in its endeavor. It knows what it's trying to do and does it.
I'm out.
Zee is running for the opposite game person. Zee Garcia 2016, everyone.
Big one. We need a 15-sided die. Yeah, right.
15-sided die, yeah. Let's see. Well, I'll take number 4, I guess. Number 4 says, what are the must-have elements for a game to be positively reviewed? Or that's not a guarantee, folks. I'm sorry. Yeah, right. Or what elements do you think are most important for any game? So I guess we'll take the half end, the bottom end of that question, because it's a little bit more applicable, I think. And for me, the whole idea is that it has a strong theme, but theme isn't enough. Theme must also have well-implemented mechanisms along with it. And when you have those two things that are together seamlessly in a perfect world, when you're doing mechanisms but it feels like you're doing the theme, that I think is what's most important for any game to be out there. The elements need to be, the mechanisms need to be fun at the bottom of the line, but on top of that, it needs to have an immersive theme. If it doesn't, you might as well just play an abstract game. And I'm not an abstract gamer, so that's why I'm heavier on theme than anything else. So for me, theme and well-implemented mechanisms are incredibly important, because for me, that's what makes a game, like Ricky was saying, fun. That's what makes it fun. So that's what I think are the most important elements for a game. Anybody else want to tackle that one?
Are we just going down the line here? This is unfair. Honeycutt's just gonna kill it. He's had like an hour to think about this.
All right, well, the battery died. Is it over?
All right.
We already picked one for JR. Yeah, so.
It's not on the list?
I don't think any of the game questions.
Forget it. Okay, my question is, was number 2 here on our list, and it is, do you just play games all day long? No. I'll give you a little more.
We'll use formulate a counter argument, yes.
Oh, yes. Debate.
I think, no, we spend, I mean, while at work, we clearly have, game nights and game get-togethers and all that, and that's about playing new games, getting enough information to be able to review a game, obviously, but at work, it's probably 80%, would you say, Sam, editing?
I was going closer to 90, I would say.
Yeah, so maybe 80% editing, about 15% shooting, and then maybe the 5% is playing, while we're at work hours. For example, now that we just came back from Gen Con, that's a massive influx of games, and so we have to play some games at work, or we just won't be able to chip away at that. So some of that was happening last week, for example, because we just came back from Gen Con, but generally, not really. I know a lot of people think that's what we do, and that would be awesome. If videos shot and edited themselves, I would love to do that, but unfortunately, we got to do that part too. So it's a lot of work, it's a lot of rewarding work, but it's a lot of work, and so we got to get games played outside of that setting, just game night, whatever, something like this even.
Yep.
So yeah. You guys really don't have to talk after every silly thing I say. Woo! No, we're not doing that.
So I do kind of play games all day long. No.
You are here.
I am here, yeah. So I'm going to take number 3. Number 3 says, what do you look for in a game when you're thinking about publishing it, which works since I'm a publisher. How many people have a game design that they'd like to publish? Raise your hand. Yeah, that's a lot. Well, you don't count. There's a lot of people in the world that have an idea, have a concept, and are looking to get their games published. With my company, Lurk Game Wonders, we've had a pretty interesting year, as you two know. We've had a nice, successful run with Sheriff Nottingham and developed a new line with the Dice Tower Essentials. And a lot of people have come asking us, hey, make my game. Like just, Tom will love this, put it in a line, everything's gonna be great, right? So what I look for personally is I look for something that is unique and is filling a hole. The first thing to me that's a kiss of death when I look at a game, when I'm thinking about publishing it, is does it remind me of something else? Because if I sit down with a game, and I'm not picking on anyone here, I don't think anyone has a game like this. If you do, I apologize. But if I sit down with your game and I start playing it, after one round I go, oh, this is like 7 Wonders. Okay, why won't I just play 7 Wonders? And that's a question that always comes back in my head. If the first thing that your game does is remind you about another game, especially a game that's popular, the question is always going to be there for a publisher is, well, why wouldn't someone just go play that other game? So when you're working on your baby, as I call it, because people call them games, but I call them babies because we like nurture them and give them love and raise them, look for how it can help fill a hole in the industry. If you think back to Love Letter at the time, micro games weren't a thing. No one knew what they were, no one had any idea of them. And then this guy Todd comes back from Japan with Love Letter in his hand, and all of a sudden everybody and their brother wants to start making these micro games and filling this void that was there in gaming. So from a publisher, that's probably the biggest thing I look for. Obviously, I look for is it fun. If it's not fun, it's not going to go anywhere. But if it's unique and fills a hole, then that's something that we look for. No, you can't.
All right. You are a publisher. Yeah, no. So my job, I do a lot of acquisitions for Level 99, and I spend time looking at prototypes. And there are 3 things that I look for. I look for polish, I look for direction, I look for personality. So polish is, from start to finish, does the game feel like it's done? Like when I'm playing it, does it look to me like, all right, like this is a thing that is either done, or there are a few little changes we can make, a few things we tweak, and the game's ready to roll, right? Because if you're looking at acquiring somebody else's game, as a publisher, I don't think a lot of people realize this. You really don't want to do a lot of development work, because if you wanted to do a lot of development work, you have your own unpolished ideas that you could develop and you wouldn't have to pay a royalty for. And you wouldn't have to send emails and argue with designers and set expectations and all those things, which is what a lot of our lives are. The second one is direction. From start to finish, does the game announce what it wants you to do, or what it wants to do, and then do that thing, and deliver on the promise that it gives you on the box or in the intro of the game? Is it what it says it will be, and is that part fun? And then personality, does it make me feel something? Do you as a designer make me feel something to the game when you explain it? Does the game itself lend some emotional response? Do I feel something when I play it? Do I sit back afterwards and reflect on it the next day and go, gosh, I really enjoyed playing that game. It really made me feel something that was different. And like Scott said, you want it to have some uniqueness, but like there's no new thing under the sun really, right? So like it can be an homage to something, but it needs to be its own game. I need to think about it and not be thinking about something else, right? Like, well, yeah, that's that. And there's more to this, but I will say, for those of you, how many people have prototypes, want to pitch prototypes? A word of advice, if you haven't heard it before, this will help out. When you know you're going to pitch to a publisher, design to that publisher. Or at least design your pitch to that publisher. You can really tell when somebody pays attention to what you do as a publisher and what kind of games you make. And when you target your pitches to the publishers that could make the kind of game that you have, and you give them reasons as to why, it makes our job so much easier. It makes us that much more likely to pay attention. So that's that.
Just to kind of cap on what he said too, he's definitely got a big thing there when you're targeting somebody, if you're pitching a game. Figure out what their line is and either find something that fits in a good way or is new and you think they can push to, but don't go at it 180. Like every now and then. Yeah, that'd be great. Yeah, I do occasionally get submissions where someone will come in. I have this awesome. It's a game about medieval combat in the 1800s. It's incredibly historical real. It takes 6 hours to play. It's all done with a million little chits. I'm like, do you know what we make? That's not what we do. So those submissions are always a little weird. So yeah, definitely target for that. I'm going to jump on this one because this is one of those things you deal with forever. What's the biggest challenge in bringing a game from concept to actual game? There's a million steps that go in there, and they're all filled with heartbreak and love and joy and terror and hair-rending. But for me, it boils down to a kind of generalization I call balance. What is the game trying to do, and how does it do it well? There's literal balance, like in Castle Panic, we had to figure out how hard to make monsters and how hard to make players. Then there's balance of, okay, if one player can do this, is something the other guy does as fun or more fun? Are they having a better time, or whatever? And just in general, finding that balance between what I'm doing, the pieces I'm moving, how I'm interacting with this, and the experience I'm having. Getting that all to balance out kind of like we were saying earlier, it has to feel like you're doing what you're doing. That, I call it general because that description right there is like 8 months of work potentially, getting all that to work. So that level of getting everything to click, that's the hardest part. Coming up with an idea, everybody can do that. Making a prototype, everybody can do that. And it's fun. That's when it's easy and light. But there's gonna be a point in the game when you've been banging on your head on this thing for days and weeks and months or years, and all of a sudden you realize you hate it. It's the worst thing ever. It's literally the dumbest thing you've ever played, and you don't know why you waste your time. You put it away, you come back later and you go, oh, well if I just made this be 2 instead of 1 and put this over here, well, that's pretty cool. Maybe I should keep working on that. So that's my advice to you guys. If you're working on that, push through that, because that balancing thing is where the beautiful stuff lies. And when you break that wall of awful, there's really good things on the other side. So there's that.
I'm going to take number 1, which is what inspired you to enter the gaming industry, either as a designer, publisher, or reviewer. And I think I want to speak first to the publisher side and then to the designer side. In 2000, I guess it was the year 2000, Justin played Settlers of Catan for the first time. And yeah, we hadn't realized how gaming and gaming mechanics had changed over the years while he'd been playing video games, and I guess I've been reading. Yeah, and so that got him into designing games again. He used to, as a child, design games, and then he got back into it. And we would have, games in various stages of development. Castle Panic started off with a pizza box. We had some paper that we had colored roughly red, green, and blue, and we kept all of the rest of the prototype pieces inside the pizza box, and we just carry it to friends' houses on the weekend. So the travel edition, that's right. And so recent people would ask us, like, did you bring that castle game? Or I think one time that pizza box game. And, over the years, we started refining, just because people were interested in that game. And he had started working for Steve Jackson Games, and there was, some conversation between us about, should we pitch this to SJ Games? And we looked at that game, and then we looked at the other games that he had in development, and we're like, first of all, it doesn't, kind of back to the question of fit, it's not a real fit for Steve Jackson Games. It's friendlier, And I mean, Steve Jackson Games is, it's a nice, stacky, fun time, it's stabbier. And so we decided, what we have here is, not just some individual games, but we have a brand. These are all hanging together nicely. And so, instead of trying to find another publisher, I think, we're a publisher that has something unique to offer to the industry. And so at that point, we started saving his salary, living off mine. And when we had enough to publish Castle Panic, and let me tell you, it was really hard writing that check for the first time, and not knowing if anything was going to come back. We went ahead and published it, and it sold out within the first print run in the first 10 weeks, and we thought we had inventory for about maybe 7 years. So, the first print run was 3,500.
Wow.
Yeah, it sold out in 10 weeks. Yeah.
To put that in perspective, the average, I don't want to speak for everyone, but to put it in perspective, most first print runs are 1,000 to 2,000, maybe. I mean,
2,000. You have 800 left for the next year.
Yeah, I mean, 3,500 is a big risk. That's pretty awesome. Yeah.
We're crazy.
But it paid off.
Yeah, it totally paid off.
You're only crazy.
Yeah, and so we'd like to kind of say, if it weren't for Justin, there'd be no Castle Panic, and if it weren't for me, there'd be no Fireside Games.
Yeah.
Because it really kind of took the both of us looking at what we had here and putting it together. And I have to say that just being around Justin and hearing the questions that he asks himself as a designer, and when he would get to certain stumbling points, certain places where he's like, I cannot think about this problem in a different way. I need another brain on it. And so he and I would talk through different design problems and possible solutions, and that got me thinking like a designer, and he kind of inadvertently trained me, to design games, and And so, you know, he really just kind of got me into designing games that way. And when my first design was actually with him. Those Bloodsuckers, a game you probably never heard of. It's a really mean, it's a card-driven combat game, Vampires Against Hunters. And then my next game I did without him knowing I was working on a game. And I wanted to do one about bears and camping, and so I would work on it, and there's kind of a story behind it I won't go into, but he was working on the camping game at the same time, and so I thought, oh, I better get mine out fast, or else, you know, he's not, and so I designed it on Saturday, totally competitive design. So like in 2 weekends, I put it together, and then I came in and I was like, okay, I have a game to show you. And so I showed him the game, and he was like, oh, that's a good game. Mine
was just like...
I just stopped my nose. And that was bears, so yeah, so that was the first one.
Is it impossible to file against your own company?
Yeah. That's right.
Totally stole my idea. Hers is way better.
According to me, did you at least the artist for
I did, I tried.
Yeah, he did the art. So, yeah.
I get something.
So, yeah. I've gone on and on, but that is how I got into it.
I'm going to tag onto that question real fast. I got into the industry by starting a community of tabletop game players in Dallas-Fort Worth called DFW Nerd Night, of which some people here are familiar. Appreciate that. All right, there's one question on this list that wanted to put on here just to make sure that I'd have to answer it. So I feel like I've been snookered into this. It's fantastic. The question is, how do you go about building a united community in an often competitive environment? Boy, that's like saying, all right, well, just give us a nice sermon on building communities, JR. Let's take 15 minutes and do this. No. So how do I answer this quickly? Build a community. So I believe that people are basically good. And I believe that tabletop gamers and tabletop gaming, I believe that tabletop gaming as an endeavor is the type of thing that you do that builds friends. Specifically because of the concept of the magic circle. Who knows what the magic circle is? Who knows of the concept? Oh, you guys are gonna like this. All right, so the magic circle is a term, I guess, used by game designers, but it's a fairly common term for game players as well. It describes a special reality that we enter when we play games, where we assume a different set of circumstances or rules than we would see in other realities. So like, hey, I'm not allowed to pick up this deck of cards and pick up the one that I need, because that's against the rules of the game, even though it would obviously be advantageous in the situation. Or hey, I shouldn't cut you off when you're talking, or I shouldn't move your pieces for you when you're not paying attention, or I shouldn't cheat. But more than that, it dictates sort of the social concepts that we have between each other. I should be polite, I should make eye contact, all the things that we do, right? Right. So the magic circle, it's something really subtle until you're aware of it, and once you're aware of it, you realize that you actually behave and act differently when you play games than you do in your real life. You do. Everyone does. It's true. And when you get into the magic circle with other people, especially strangers, it's almost like being a part of a trust exercise, like a trust fall, or things like that. So if all of you behave appropriately, when you're done, you've built trust with people without meaning to, right? Games provide this opportunity to do this, and it turns out that when you build trust with strangers, you're community building. And it's a great way to build friendships very quickly. Well, do my best. Z is nodding his head, therefore I am correct. Vote Z, everyone. So I believe that being in the magic circle, playing tabletop games, builds communities more quickly than other things might. Now, granted, other sub-hobbies do the same thing, right? Subcultures do the same thing. People who knit, people who golf, people who sell things to each other on Facebook, right? These are all viable ways to make friends. I'm not saying that tabletop gaming is better. We all know that it's better. I'm just saying that it's a way to do this. And as a result, communities are built. Building communities in competitive environments is about creating a space where people feel like they can go, a neutral area, where people don't have to compete with each other outside competing in board games. And doing it in a way that doesn't involve competitiveness is just about finding shared goals we can all agree on, right? Like, my group has raised, through parties in DFW, Chicago, at Gen Con, BGG Con, and on the East Coast, we've raised something like $65,000 for charity in 3 years. And we've never charged a penny for it. Trust me, I did not donate that, that's not for me. And we've never charged a penny for our staff, and we never ask anyone to donate anything. We just operate on things that people are willing to give to charities that we invite to come. And the reason that it works is because people are basically, you guys are good people, right? Like, you're good folks, and if we had a charity up here and said, hey, these guys are collecting money, some of you would come and pitch in some money, and some of you would come and ask some questions. Because that's what we do, we're basically good. That's what we want to do anyways, we want to help out. And anytime you can give somebody an excuse to game, they're going to take it, right? Like, if I tell my wife I have to leave and go play games for 10 hours, that doesn't sound as good as, hey babe, I have to go support a charity for a while. Why are you taking your box of games? Oh, just in case. You never know when things go weird. Like either situations and all that. So the answer is to create a situation, try to create a culture where you're all working towards something that is obviously positively good, and then when you do that, and you play games, or even don't play games, to the better sides of people, you kind of hedge through the situations that might otherwise be awkward. We have something like 40 different game stores in Dallas-Fort Worth. Probably 30 that sell board games, another 10 that do Magic, another little bit of board games, and another 10 or 15 that just do Magic and card games. There are a lot of places to play games, and as a result, there's a lot of competition. But a lot of them come together for nerd nights, and they all support us, and they're members of our group, and they come to our parties. Because it's not a competitive thing, right? They're not there selling games. They're there to hang out and have fun and do good for charity, so there is that. Yeah, and it's pretty fun to run the thing, too. It's pretty nice for me. So yeah, there. I don't know if everybody answered that. I do a 2-hour YouTube show every Wednesday night, and I can just talk about this for 2 hours. No need for these other panelists, guys. Just buckle your seatbelts, everyone. We'll pass out some popcorn.
I mean, that was the short version answer of that, right?
Yeah. That's all I have. I don't get any more questions.
I also picked up on that question a little bit because community is something that is important. And the answer that I had was much shorter than JR's, but basically my whole thought process here is that mindset is everything. If you're playing games just so that you can, I don't know, bolster your own ego or make yourself look better because you beat everybody else or something to that effect, that's kind of the wrong avenue to be taking. Sure, we want to win. We want to have we want to have fun winning, but that shouldn't be our goal. You know what I'm saying? Mindset should be the goal, and the mindset that I think that we as gamers should have is one of community, is one of furthering our community, fostering more interest in our community, and that's what I think is important here. The opportunity to spread our very cool hobby to people who, quite frankly, don't even know it exists. I mean, if we want to really take a look at reality, people have no idea that there are things like this that go on. Because they're off in their own little, not little world, I'm not trying to belittle it, but they're in their own realm of reality. And so they you know, out of sight, out of mind type thing. So when we do come into their sites, we need to have our A game on. And our A game is not necessarily, I just crush you. Our A game is, I enjoy playing this, and you'll enjoy it too if you give it a chance. So I think it's a mindset more than anything else.
That was a good answer. Does anybody out there have a question?
Yeah, let's do that.
Yeah. Questions?
Absolute top 3 games.
Well, like this Gen Con, 2006, or?
What did you say?
The one that was...
Firefly the Dice Game, Village Chrome, Battle War Indians.
Reviewers. How many did you say you wanted? Top 3. Top 3.
Top 1 might be
Codenames.
Okay.
Codenames.
This is not a new one. This is not a new one for Gen Con specifically, but it is one of the first times I actually got a full playthrough of the game, and I got to do it with a designer, so it was a high point for me. This will come in at number 3, and that's Heroes of Normandy.
Yeah.
It's a really, really smooth, cool, 2-player, tactical World War II board game. And I about jumped out of my skin. I'll say skin. I won't say pants. That would be bad.
Jumped out of your skin?
Almost. They're announcing a Shadows of Normandy for later on, which is going to be like a Hellboy type universe applied to that system. So that was cool. Number 2 would probably be Discoveries, Lewis and Clark dice game, based on the Lewis and Clark board game, but with dice and allocation of dice and worker placement and that type of thing. So that was a really cool thing. I think my top game that I was introduced to at Gen Con, but it's not out yet, is another one by Bruno Catala called Raptors, where it's a two-player game where you both have a deck of cards 0 to 9, and one person takes the scientists, the other person takes a team of velociraptors, and the scientists are trying to capture the velociraptors for study. The velociraptors are trying to protect their young and get their young off the board, and if they kill the scientists in the process, that's good too. So it's a really cool back and forth. So those were my top 3 from Gen Con.
I don't normally make a top list this quick. I need the computer in front of me because I forget. And sometimes if I play something a little bit earlier than Gen Con, then I don't group it in that group of games in my head, you know? Anyway, stuff that was technically out at Gen Con that I played, I'm going to say number 3, the Grizzle little card game. We're actually playing it a little while ago. I have a copy if you want to join me and play it. I'll show it to you. And it's a simple little co-op card game based in World War I. Takes about 30 minutes. Really clean design. I like it a lot. Number 2, New York 1901, which is from Blue Orange Games. There might be a copy back there.
There's no copy there.
Yeah.
It's in my box.
Good job. And that's a really cool tile laying card drafting game. It feels like a nice classic family game. It's got that timeless feel to it. And then my number 1 was actually one that Sam said, Discoveries was my favorite game that I played at Gen Con, or have played from Gen Con since. And just I like Lewis and Clark a lot. And the dice mechanism in this one is really good stuff. It's fun, it looks amazing. It's just a good dice game. I like dice games, and this is a great one. So that was a top choice. It's a good stuff. You?
I'll be nice and not say any of them already. The top 3 games for me that weren't my games. Not really ranking them 1 to 3, but there's a game that's kind of under the radar from Asmodee called Ryu, which is really interesting.
Did you make that noise?
Because I'm tight. You want to know. Ryu is really cool. There's an old game that came out a while back called Gosu, Goblin Supremacy. Which not many people heard of, but yeah, okay, good, okay. Right. I really like that game, and it didn't get any attention. And this game is very different, but it's set in the same universe, and it's got beautiful artwork, so it's really, really cool. New York 1901 was good too. I definitely like New York 1901. The one, it's funny, I came home with a lot of games. Personally, I spent way too much money. Mysterium was really good. It was kind of the first release at Gen Con for English version. If you haven't played Mysterium, it's kind of like Clue and Dixit had a baby, and it's awesome. Yeah, right, it's amazing.
But it grew up. It's not like
it grew up, yeah.
It knows how to dress itself. It's all over.
Yeah. My number 1, though, hands down, was Codenames. Yeah, Codenames, in my opinion, Codenames might be the game of the year so far for me. That's how good it is. It's a party game. It's playable by any age, anytime. You can get your kids involved. You can get any age involved, and it's just super, super fun. So, yeah.
I did not get to leave my booth and play anything, so yay, Gen Con!
We played one game. We played Monarch.
We did?
Yeah, that's a fun game.
Monarch
by
Mary Flanagan.
Yes, by Mary Flanagan, yeah. And she waited, 3 years to find the right artist, and it shows. It's beautiful art.
Got to scratch the board done, so yeah, it's pretty cool.
Yeah, that's a fun game. And then after that, we played Mysterium and Codenames at a board game bash in Austin. So, did you not play those?
I did not play those.
Oh, you didn't? Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
I was
Yeah. So, yeah. But those are really the only three from that we played. So yeah.
All the hot stuffs.
Yeah. But we played like 15 new games last weekend that were new to us. They weren't necessarily new on the market. But now there was one that we kept going back to that we really loved. Do you remember Lanterns? Yes, Lanterns. It was a super fun game.
By a Texan Foxtrot Games, Randy Hoyt.
Really?
Of Dallas. Yep.
It is awesome.
Yeah.
All right, Scott Stolman. Who here has ever played a party game? All right, hands up. All right, now keep your hands up for a moment. I want each of you to go buy a copy of Codenames. If you don't like it, you can email me at jr@level99games, and I will promptly return your email and tell you that you are incorrect. Codenames is. See, have you played it? Did you guys get a chance to play it? Yeah. It's because you didn't mention it. I just want to make sure you just didn't forget. Codenames it's really, really good.
It is good, but it's
Yeah.
the one party game that has analysis paralysis.
Yeah, that's fair. That's fair. Yeah. That's a good task. The one party game that has analysis paralysis. That's right.
This is the one adventure game.
Yeah.
It's an abstract.
In fact, if I had a copy.
Go ahead, I'm sorry.
Thunder is here.
No. My thunder was always there. It's fine. One does not exist as a game reviewer at the same panel as the Dice Tower. I'm just down here. There are three games. Another one by Randy Hoyt and Foxtrot, World's Fair 1893. Really, really, really cool. They were in the double exposure room most of the time. It was a lot of fun. Another one that I really enjoyed was Tides of Time by Ignacy. So if you guys know Portal Games, Ignacy Trzewiczek. Trzewiczek. Ignacy's Polish. I don't know how to say Trzewiczek. I can't get it right. He's a great guy. Tides of Time is a delicious two-player game. It's a little two-player drafting game. It manages to feel fresh and unique for $12, and it manages to be replayable, despite the game being 18 cards now. 14 cards, I think. Is it 18? Yeah. It's silly how much fun it is. It's really well developed. And the other one that I really enjoyed, did I mention Codenames? It's in Codenames. All right. Ashes by Isaac Vega and Flat Hat Games. It's a two-player game. We can't call it an LCG because fans is white. But Ashes, yeah, a non-collectible card game. It is an LCG without being an LCG. I can say that because it's not my company.
Yeah, right.
Right. It's really good, and I encourage you guys to try it out. I have really enjoyed it a lot. So those are my three.
Cool.
Great.
I didn't get a chance to go to Gen Con because not that cool this year. But Wanda, actually, where's she at? She's awesome.
Wanda?
She got me a copy of Legendary Predator because she knows I am a Predator freak and it's one of my favorite movies of all time. And I'm a big fan of deck builders, so it's fun. And it has a neat little PvP mechanic with the Predators in there. So
And
if you
12 days later after you sorted it, you got to play.
I've got kids. So we just push all that off, just outsource all that work, and it works. Since Scott didn't mention it, I'll go ahead and do it. Although it's not really fair, I'm a huge Mage Wars fan, and Mage Wars Academy is absolutely incredible. It has a perfect way for you to get into the universe of Etheria and step into the arena in a much smaller scale, so that way you don't actually have that giant board feeling and all of those miniature war game feeling.
Wait, he's gotta go another 30
Oh, that works, I guess. Yeah. No, it is really good. If you haven't had a chance to play Mage Wars, just another quick shout out. We play the San Angelo area. We get together twice a month at War Dogs on the same Wednesday that we release the Mage Wars Mondays podcast. And we play that. It's an absolutely fantastic game. And it's one that you can really spend a lot of time playing and thinking of strategy. And then just get completely blanked whenever you roll your combat. So, shout out to them over there, yeah. Mage Wars Academy, awesome.
Thank you.
All right, since Heroes of Normandy wasn't actually a Gen Con release, I will supplant one more that was a Gen Con release, and that is good. Not I just brain farted.
I never played that. How many has that played? 6 or really? That's a party game, right?
I got it. Z help me. Blood Rage. If you have not played Blood Rage. You need to go out and play Blood Rage, and then promptly pick up your own copy of it and play it some more. It is a wonderfully thematic, sink your teeth into Viking game that was done absolutely superbly correct. So I can't say enough good about Blood Rage when I remember the name.
Yeah, if you don't like it, email JR.
And he'll tell you Sam's incorrect.
Yeah, sorry about that. Okay, any other questions?
What other questions? Yeah. Come on, here we go.
Shoot.
Yeah.
Do you guys ever get games or something kind of like a Kickstarter? Do you guys ever kind of back up a game or actually play a game on Kickstarter? One I want to specifically say is one game that came out a couple of while, Exploding Kittens. Have you ever heard of
Never
that?
heard of it.
If it didn't make $4 million, then I don't care.
Actually, it's coming up here. It was the most successful campaign ever on Kickstarter. And so I didn't know if you guys happen to play games.
Well, let's define successful really quick, right?
It had 219,000 backers.
It was quickly followed by exploding everything else that could possibly explode.
So just from a publisher standpoint, I just want to make a few comments about Kickstarter. I guess the first one is our industry is really built on a three-tier system. There's publishers, there's distributors, there's retailers. And when they work well, and sometimes there are hiccups, because each of those tiers have their own cash flow issues. But when it works well, it is the most efficient way and most cost-effective way of getting games to consumers. And Kickstarter is one way for you to get directly from the publisher or the designer directly to the consumer. And the idea is to kind of get around what's considered the middleman. The problem is usually what happens because of the kinds of shipping deals that distributors can get that help bring value to that whole supply chain. The money from Kickstarter ends up going to manufacturers and shippers. And so it gets diverted there instead of getting diverted back into the industry that helps keep the kind of pipeline of games healthy. And so we've not used Kickstarter. We might consider it for things that help improve games, like if we wanted to do minis or something like that, but we're really reluctant to use Kickstarter because of the effects on the industry as a whole. Now, having said that, when we went to Gen Con, what we noticed was most of the games that had the hype were the games that were on Kickstarter. So there's also a reality for the publishers that we're having to face, and I think this year more than any other year, which is if you want to have successful marketing, it's hard not to have to take a look at Kickstarter. But we want to do it in a way that helps support the health of the industry as a whole. So to me, it's a tricky question.
So we have 4 more hours in this, right? Kickstarter. You guys want to jump in? I have stuff, but I don't want to. Go. All right.
The short answer.
The short answer. I love Kickstarter. I would not have a job if it weren't for Kickstarter, and I wouldn't have any published games if it weren't for Kickstarter. And I can stop there. But
Nailed it.
Anne Marie's right. Kickstarter is a double-edged sword because what is good for one of us is not necessarily good for all of us. There's a real it's the tragedy of the commons, right? Like Kickstarter, I think one huge thing Kickstarter has done is it has improved the general quality of graphic design and production quality for games in the last 5 years by pushing the standard higher. Everyone has to make better looking games now because of Kickstarter, which is good for fans. Maybe not for us. We have to pay for final finishing and limited finishing rule books and UV coated game boards and everything else. Right, exactly. It's 5-dimensional miniatures. Right, they don't just go through time, they go through time twice. And as a fan, it's great because the level of access for a person who's, like, the industry, the doors have been blown wide open, right? Like 5 years ago, if you wanted to get a job in the industry and you didn't know Steve Jackson Games, Christian T. Peterson, if you didn't know Larry Rossmeyer, the guys at Mayfair, or you didn't know anybody at Looney Labs or Days of Wonder, you didn't get a job. Not in the US, right? You just weren't going to get one. So the way that you did it was you reviewed games, and you reviewed games a lot, and you went to conventions, and you tried to meet people and do demos and try to find yourself a job. Now, there's so much more money flowing into tabletop gaming through Kickstarter that there's a chance for little guys to have jobs and create companies that can hire people. Cross my heart, thank Frank Holton, Level 99 Games. And that's great. That's good for the industry too. But it sets, I think, a set of, with that access for fans and people who want to get jobs, and for just the fans that want to have a say in the games get created, there's also some unreasonable expectations on publishers that are very, very difficult to keep up with. You do that, but you'd be here for 4 more hours. So just know it isn't all good, but it's also not all bad. That's fair. Right? That's a fair point. And Scott Morris is going to say more interesting.
So I think where you were going, we might have diverted a little bit. I think you were going towards, like, do we get approached to play games that are on Kickstarter, right?
Kind of like do reviews for games that kind of started with Kickstarter and kind of successful, you know?
Yeah.
Review games from Kickstarter. And
So
that was the thing I had no idea of the way it kind of Kickstarter, and so it was really good that you guys kind of told me what it is. But I was trying to go into more of, you guys look at Kickstarter, see what kind of games you try to do reviews or look for reviews.
Yes, yes, and yes. One, I didn't mention this, but aside from being part of Arcane Wonders, I also have a review site called Crits Happen. Yeah, I know, shocking, right? You're part of the Dice Flower, right? That's what you do? Yeah. They're great, they're growing, they're good. Thank you. I used to review games that were on Kickstarter, but I wouldn't necessarily review them like an opinion. I would overview. And there's a big difference in that. And for me, this is just me, I'm not speaking for everybody else up here. I think anyone who reviews a Kickstarter game prior to it being delivered is making a huge mistake because it's not a final product. And a lot of times the Kickstarter games will go through a massive evolution during the process of the project. 99.9% of the time, the project owner will send someone that's looking at the game a print board. That's it. Just a couple of letters and text and not very much art. So I think that's kind of an injustice to the community to say, hey, I'm reviewing this game, and oh my god, it's phenomenal, and look at this blank card with text on it, it's so cool, right?
Insert theme here.
Exactly, yeah, please excuse me while I ignore the rich and deep theme, right? So, we do get approached a lot, and I'm sure you guys can tack onto this massively. I personally probably get 20 to 25 emails a week just to look at Kickstarter games and preview them on my channel. It's an evil, nasty thing because a lot of times it's not the genuine nature of, hey, I really like your channel and I'd love for you to look at my game. It's, oh, you have 11,000 subscribers, which means you're a marketing engine for me, so I want that out there, right? Which is hard, it's tough to deal with. I can definitely tell you this, if anyone has hopes of self-publishing and you think you're going to be exploding kittens, you're more than likely not. I'm not saying you won't, I'm not saying you can't, I'm just saying you're more than likely not. Even someone of our stature, with our brand and our creed, trying to do that is going to be very hard. They were an anomaly, they were a marketing engine with like, was it 1.2 million followers on Facebook? Yeah.
The number one rule in Kickstarter is if you want to make money, have a pre-existing audience.
Exactly,
right?
exactly.
That's the first thing.
So, we do get approached by that a lot. If you are trying to do that, and this is probably good advice for anyone who raised their hand that is looking to make their own games, self-publishing is very prevalent. Like you said, the doors are wide open, anyone can do it now. If you want to come to people that are reviewers and you want them to look at the game, similar to what you were saying earlier about tailor your pitch towards the publisher, tailor your pitch towards that reviewer.
make sure, for example, if you watch my channel, I've never done a single thing about a role-playing game because my audience doesn't care. I tried to, and they don't want to listen to it. So I know not to do that. So if somebody comes to me and says, hey, would you please preview my role-playing game, I'm going to politely say, I'm sorry, my audience probably wouldn't really care about it too much. So definitely, know the person that you're pitching that game to and what it would do to benefit them. If you can get the right game to the right reviewer, it can make a big impact and a big sway. You want to tag on to that?
Not really. No, I agree with you. Just about with everything you said.
Record that.
Yeah. Kickstarter is it's an awesome, and I use that word carefully. It's an awesome force, and that's important. That's both good and bad, as Honeycutt said. So with it comes pitfalls, and on the reviewer side, it's a can of worms, that we have as the Dice Tower closed, and it took a while actually to get it to sort of get that door to shut, to do reviews of games that are not games yet, do a review of something that doesn't exist technically. It's like watching the trailer for a movie and then reviewing it. Can't do it. So I agree.
Fantastic Four.
With Fantastic Four, it was fairly easy. Yeah, it's bad. I don't know if everybody.
Spoiler alert.
But yeah, it's a can of worms, and we anyway don't do it anymore. I concur.
Let me just tag that real quick. I think there are two kinds of companies that make Kickstarter games. There are companies that take a game to Kickstarter and they know that it's done. Queen Games does this. Yeah.
There are two kinds of this. So you mentioned like you guys never review a game from Kickstarter. I know the Dice Tower has that, and your point is very good.
No, we don't. No, it's not that we don't. Wow, don't Kickstarter.
Right, exactly. Yeah. But I want to and I want to make sure the fans, the audience doesn't think I don't want to call you guys fans yet. I don't know you that well. But right. They're guys. There are two kinds of games that Kickstarter people do. There is the game that will go through design changes during the Kickstarter and afterwards, because it's either a first-time publisher or it's an indie publisher that is using Kickstarter,
quote unquote,
for what it's for. And they are taking fan feedback and developing the game to Kickstarter, which is great. It's a really cool way to do that. And then there are companies, Level 99 being one of them, is pretty close to this, where the game is basically done when it goes to Kickstarter, and a review of the game will be an honest review, because at the end of the process, it will be the same game. Maybe there's some extra stuff, but it'll be the same game. So I will occasionally review games that are live on Kickstarter if they're from publishers that I know well enough to know, like, this is what this final product will be, right?
That's a good game.
But most Kickstarters aren't that. But it was worth saying. So yeah.
Yeah, actually, I review a lot of things on Kickstarter. Most of the things I do come from Kickstarter, actually. So there's a lot of guys.
But you don't review.
I overview.
There's a big difference.
There is a difference. And here's another thing I do that may get some ire. I don't review games I don't like. I don't overview games I don't like. If I don't like it, I'm not going to talk about it. I'll shoot you an email and I'll tell you, hey, I don't like this game because of this. That's just not a good fit. I don't like putting that bad energy out there. And it's weird, it's a little heavy, but I just don't. That's the way I do things. Of course, I've got 1,500 subscribers. I'm not the Dice Tower, so.
1,500, that's a lot.
Thanks, man.
I know.
No, I like it. I think it's a good thing. My game's going to be on Kickstarter soon, so hopefully you guys like it. And if you don't, let me know. Maybe we can tweak it in part 2 when it fails.
What other questions? Anybody else? Yeah.
For those of you that produce games, how do you decide how much time to devote to your product that you've already got out and continuing support in it, and how much do you decide to put into developing new products as well?
That's a good question.
Expansion versus a new game.
Wow, that's a good question.
Well, I was like, I know Major just came out with the new expansion or the new game that's still part of the.
So I'll jump in on that because we're actually doing that right now with Mage Wars, between Mage Wars Academy and Mage Wars Arena. If you come by the booth or tables over there and talk to me about it, I may have said this to some people that
I personally have a fear that Mage Wars Academy is going to become more popular than Mage Wars Arena, and that it will push the community for Arena down and to the left and raise this community up. So that's something that I'm extremely sensitive to and trying to look at. The challenge with that is this. Let's just use round numbers. Let's just say I have 100,000 copies of Mage Wars that are sold. I have no idea how many of those are actually being played. There could be 500 being played on a regular basis. There could be 75,000 being played on a regular basis. So for me, one of the biggest kind of voice of the community things is looking at social media and BGG. Whether you love it or whether you hate it, BGG is a massive amount of information. And being able to get information about what people are playing, when they're playing it, is just tremendous. Also, being vocal about what you play. JR showed me an app earlier today, and it's something that I'm seeing more and more people logging their plays online in some type of database, whether it's BGG or anything else. That's invaluable information to us as publishers. And it's your voice of what you're doing that is actually going to influence us to pay attention to things like that. Especially with in a publishing line like mine, I've got a distinct brand with Mage Wars, and then we've got the Dice Tower Essentials, which are completely separate. It's very hard to not say, well, hey, Sheriff sold 100,000 copies in 6 months, so let's focus on this and not focus on that. But hey, we've got a great community for this, so we've got to focus on this, right? So it is a balancing act that's very tricky. But for me, it's a lot of looking at social media, hashtag everything. I search the craziest hashtags you don't even want to see. So it's crazy. But I try and gather all that and get all that information as much as possible to see what people are playing. I feel like I have a finger on the pulse of what our communities are doing. We know, for the most part, in terms of the feedback we get from our volunteers and our ambassadors, what they're doing, and social media as well. But that's the biggest things that we use to kind of look at where do we focus our efforts and what do we work on. But at pretty much any given time, you correct me if I'm wrong at this, there's about 27 flaming chainsaws in the air, and we're juggling those.
Yeah, I would definitely go with that. There's a constant push and pull, and it really is a juggling act. If you've got a title, like Scott was saying, it's hot and it's moving, you've got to focus on it. You've got to see, are you looking at expansions? Are you looking at organized play? What's going on? Where's it going? How's it growing? And then in the meantime, you have to have a new game that works, so you've got to jump on that. You may have an older game that all of a sudden is picking up steam. You may have something that some reviewer picked up and all of a sudden it's really hot, so you have to watch that. And it really is a matter of how fast can you bounce back and forth between all of them, but also looking like release schedules, when things need to go to press, how long it takes to be on a boat, how long it takes to get to the warehouse, etc. You got to back all that up and look at, okay, we can talk about selling them off, but at a certain point you've got to have this game done or it's not coming out for whenever. So yeah, it's a constant back and forth challenge. I don't know if I can put it in a percentage. Let me hand it over to Anne-Marie. She knows a lot more of the numbers. I'm the guy in the background with the chainsaws going, ah!
I'm just thrilled to hear him say the game's got to get done.
But it's not perfect yet. Wait. 1 more month.
Yeah. But that actually is kind of the crux of the challenge. With 900 to 1,000 new titles on the market every year, you can't have a mediocre game out there. So, I mean, what's most important isn't necessarily are you supporting through expansions existing properties, or are you kind of trying to expand the catalog? I mean, that certainly is a consideration, and it's part driven by the amount of plays that you're hearing about. And then for us, it's driven by kind of where we are as kind of a smaller brand right now, and how to best grow. We started off by trying to really kind of create bookends around the brands by having Castle Panic in the middle, Bloodsuckers on one side, and Bears on the other. So you knew, anything that came out from Fireside Games was going to kind of fit in that spectrum. People didn't care. they loved Castle Panic. They wanted more Castle Panic. We didn't want to be a one-property company. And Bears has been successful, not as successful as Castle Panic. Bloodsuckers, only a few people have even heard of. And so we had to support Castle Panic with the Wizard's Tower, and then we've tried to open up the brand. So we kind of do a one-step kind of shuffle, you know, where we try to come out with an expansion or a variation on the Panic line. We've kind of used the variations on the Panic line to do new things and still capitalize on the Panic brand. So the variations kind of take the concentric rings and some of the, you know, the panicking, a few of the mechanics, and then we upend them in some way, change out the mechanics so that, you know, we keep interested as designers. So, but the most important thing is that it's got to be a fun game that does something new, something innovative, and gives you a new play experience. It's just too competitive out there, you know, for it to be worth, you know, putting your money behind, you know, just, you know, the next thing you thought of.
A couple of times, so I know you got one.
So for every game that you successfully get to print, how many prototypes, concepts, ideas
Are in the gutter?
never get to see day? Like you seriously work on and never get to see the light of day?
Oh, you're breaking my heart. It's gonna be different for everybody, but yeah. I'll give you a hint. Look at a publisher schedule, and when you see a gap, it's not that they were lazy, it's that something died a horrible, tragic death, it took up too much time, and then they lost time, and the other games couldn't come out. So for us, it's only been a handful, but we have definitely tried new things that just didn't make it. And for us, it's a cutoff of, you know, it can die for a million reasons. Was it just maybe the market wasn't ready? Was it going to be too much expense? Or for us, it's a matter of this game just wasn't fun enough. And sometimes you don't find that out until you're late in testing. Or there's also an issue that comes up I've seen. It's the same way we get 2 asteroid movies in the same year or whatever. You'll come out with a game, we'll be right about to, and somebody comes out with something that is really freaking close. And like, okay, we can release this and be called the guys who ripped the other guys off. I've been working on it for 9 months, but I can get out after them on press. So we've had that happen too. Right now, I'd say we're getting, 3 published for every 1 we axe, maybe, if we're lucky. And some of those are axed for time reasons. Like, we're going to come back to that later, and other ones are like, no, I have to give this baby up, it didn't work, so yeah. Yeah, they're heartbreaking every time, though, so that's about where we are. But we're a pretty small company in terms of, Andrew and I are pretty much the main brains behind the game, so we don't have a staff of people or anything going on. It's just 2 brains trying to dump as much out, so how about you, Scott?
Kill it, Scott.
You're very humble, you know. I love you guys. You're a good company, and I think you're bigger than you guys expect. You're good. and I own Bloodsuckers. So
Yes!
Just for the record.
That's 1!
So, 3! Yeah, there you go, see? We're already increasing sales. Sorry. My life's very bizarre in this realm, especially because of the success of Sheriff Nottingham. Selling 100,000 copies in 6 months is unheard of in this industry. It just does not happen. Yeah, I've had people come up to me and be like, you know, man, it's phenomenal, it's amazing. Like, I've been trying for a decade to get a game and sell that fast and quick. And I always feel bad because I feel like I have to apologize for success, and I'm like, sorry. But yeah, it's kind of an awkward moment, right? But because of that, there's a lot of people that are submitting games, and they're throwing them at us, they're throwing them at the Dice Tower, they're coming out of the woodwork. Right now, and you can press me all you want, I'm not going to tell you about all of them. We have 10 signed games that are on the schedule until 2018, which is pretty crazy. Behind all those, we have 37 different prototypes that have been submitted to us that we are seriously considering. No, 37. I could name them all. I won't, but I could.
It's not like a random.
No, it's not. It's pretty crazy. It is. It's a lot. Of those 37, we'll probably maybe do 1. Yeah, if that. Because our goal is quality, not quantity. And the challenge is, like I said before, if people raise their hand about the design, there's a lot of designs and a lot of ideas going on. So there is quite a lot. And I don't want to say that we would trash them and dump them, because they're not. They're just games that, like we were talking about before, don't fit at the time. Separately, aside from Arcane Wonders, and this kind of fits in with this,
The Firefly game that Wanda had mentioned was a game that I had sold to Upper Deck prior to working with Arcane Wonders. And Jason Brenner, who's the marketing director who bought the game for me, was very sycophantic and came over to me and said, we're going to make this a Marvel dice game. And I'm like, oh, this is awesome. I love Marvel, and you know, I can do this. This would be great. And then, like literally the week after, Marvel Dice Masters was announced.
Yeah.
And yeah. Asteroids kind of collided on that, right? So, and that caused them to pull it back. They held it back and they waited for about 4.5 months before they got another IP to put it against them. So yeah, the asteroids thing can happen a lot. To give you an idea, JR and I were talking about this earlier, and I still have people come up to me asking this, about what's the difference between Summoner Wars and Mage Wars? Because they both have wars and people think they're the same. Right? No, but here's the funny thing. So both Summoner Wars and Mage Wars came out roughly at the same time. And they're both in the same fictitious world called Etheria. Etheria. And neither company talked to each other. Nobody knew each other. And then we both released our games and we're like, this is weird. Very bizarre. So I mean, it can get that crazy and that odd, right? So it's pretty weird. So, but yeah, in our case, once you get something like Sheriff, you start to get a bunch more put at you, and then it's a matter of picking the right thing for the right time. All right, thank you all for coming. Any other questions? Fire away.
I was like, typically games you think Europe or America where they come from. What do you think about the Asian market? Korea, Japan, Mountain Fire, Taiwan, China.
How come nobody ever mentions Australia?
You got a chance, those Asian communities are really starting. We're seeing their stuff here in the States now. I mean, I've got two over here that are Asian origin.
Yasha was awesome.
Yeah, well then three.
There you go.
But those things are really starting to show up. One of the big things is it change sound. Is that the timing thing is a beautiful art. You know what I'm talking about? It comes out on acid and it's gorgeous. But the Asian market is just showing up. I mean, are you like scared that Asian influx just puts more pressure on like the publishers, or you're just like, well, what stuff I have to review?
Well, for the most part, I mean, I would counter that with Asian markets actually been going very strong for quite a while. They're going all the way back to love letter. The Asian market really. The Asian market can go pretty well. Love letter was used, came from overseas. I don't necessarily think anyone's scared per se, because at least in our world, most foreign publishers don't have any type of U.S. distribution. So they look to us to partner with them. They want us to actually sign the rights for their games and then kind of sub-license it where we make an English version of it and distribute it over here. There's a lot of great ideas from overseas, even Europe, Asia, even Australia. There's a lot of really, really great ideas. One of the games that I love playing right now that's from overseas is a game called Fake Artist Comes to New York. Oink Games, yeah, it's a great game. It literally comes like I think Zee's phone is bigger than the box that it comes in. It's kind of like Cryptozoic and Telestrations, or not, Spyfall and Telestrations had a baby. Great baby game. I have 3 kids. I don't know. But yeah, no, there's a lot happening in those markets. I think for a very long time, the micro game coming out of Japan was a big thing. People tried to capture that love letter feel. In my opinion, and people can come punch me in the face if they don't agree with this, no one has ever captured it, and no one will capture it ever again the way Love Letter did. They were the right game at the right time with the right people, and it was just amazing.
They were both first and best.
Yeah, exactly. First and best, yeah, exactly. I don't think anyone's scared about it though, but I actually think it's great.
I don't think it's a bad thing.
No, yeah.
More games, you know, does the pressure that it may cause on you. I didn't know anything about the
Yeah, yeah.
That pressure when Sway's concerned about more the publisher developers.
Yeah, actually, the funny thing that I see happen is that somebody signs a game that's really good from overseas, and then it becomes, it's almost like fantasy football draft where someone picks the tight end, and then there's a run on tight ends, and everyone has to go draft one. The same thing happens. Somebody signs some great game from overseas, and everyone's like, oh, I have to get something. I gotta have something like that, and you start to see that happen, right? So, but yeah, exactly.
I guess the only thing that scares me when I'm trying to review it's typically Japanese games is those rules. Well, they're in Japanese, so that doesn't really help. And so yeah, sometimes we'll get a game and it's fully in Japanese. I don't speak. Do you speak Japanese?
Or it's translated badly. Very bad.
Much joy and excitement to you.
Yes. Joy and excitement. No, I mean the whole. I'm going to pick Japan because it seems to be a blooming market. Z-Man tried this a few years ago. They had a bunch of little Japanese card games that they brought over. They did okay, I think. And then that sort of died down a little bit. Then Love Letter kicked it up a notch again. But it's about. I don't think that Japanese games started up again because they're Japanese. It's because they did something we weren't doing. And I think they're doing it culturally. I don't think they're doing it on purpose. Every Japanese game is smaller than it would be here if we made it. I mean, I played a worker placement game from Japan that is a little bigger than this phone. It has pawns in there, and it's a worker placement game, but it's tiny because it's a tiny place, right? So they have to. And that's what it is. And so they didn't do it on purpose. I mean, it's like a cultural thing that happened to get picked up here, and we went, wow, this has 14 cards and it's a whole game. Let's run with that. And I think that's what what brought that bloom back into our view. But games from other places, I mean, that's been happening for a long time since Germany sort of blew open the market in the 70s, and everybody went, hey, they're doing it, let's do it. It just didn't cross cultures as much as it, as much as a single game will. And then everything else follows it, It creates a vacuum almost, and everything else goes and fills that vacuum, So I think that's what it is.
Yeah, I think it's a false assumption that board game companies compete with each other. Really. And the reason that we don't is because our market's not saturated. Board gaming as a hobby competes against other luxury right? $100. And the thing is that it's a specific kind of competition because ultimately the time that we spend playing board games is luxury time, right? And if you think about the board game and the time spent as a luxury product, then you start classifying the product and you sell it in a different way. We don't compete on price, we compete on brand, we compete on fun. Which means it's not about how much value you get in dollars and cents. It's about how much fun you have with the family as a luxury item. Because that means the market activity. So we're not scared of Japanese games. We want 100,000 more Japanese games to sell in the US. Because that means that the market is that much larger. Because unlike a luxury vehicle, if you buy one board game, you're buying 9 more board games per hour. I know that. I'm in today. I know this rabbit hole, right? We know, I think each of us intuitively really understands the consumption curve for a board game player. What happens is their friends use to Settlers or to a Sheriff of Nottingham or right? Or whatever. Somebody introduces a game and you play it and you really like it and you say, gosh, where did you get that? You're like, check out my friendly local game store or CSI or Amazon or whatever. And then you go, oh my gosh, there's like 5 other board games. So you buy them. You're like, I have $100. What do I need this $100 for? Not for these great board games. And then suddenly you need to ask your wife or her husband for permission to buy 2 more bookshelves. Right? This is how this goes, and we know that. What we want more entry points into the hobby because we know that once you're in it, you're stuck. No one ever leaves this hobby. You're in it for 7 years, right? 7 years is the conception of board games before you give it up and move on to something else, right? Yeah. And if you get the game design bug, you're done. So we're not competing with each other. Are we? No. That's why we're all so very happy to go to conventions and talk about these games and compete for each other and these cross promotions. stuff. Because we know that if you buy any of our games, you will then buy the other people's games at some point. Every time. Waters rise. Exactly. But we don't want you to watch movies. Do not go see Fantastic. We will design you a Fantastic Four board game that you will like more.